Besides having the comfort and shelter of a good house, getting enough food to eat was even more important. New Plymouth was basically an agricultural community. That was why much of what its 150 people did each day had something to do with farming. The colony's farmland stood outside the walls of the town. Here, grains like rye and barley were raised. But by far, their most successful crop was corn, a New World plant that had been unknown to them back in England. American Indians had shown the colonists that the best way to grow corn was to use dead fish. Holes were dug, the fish were thrown in, covered with dirt, and then the seeds were planted on top. That way, when the fish rotted, they fertilized the corn plants and helped them grow. In the fall, when the plants were fully grown, the corn was harvested. Back in the village, the women prepared the ears for drying by braiding them together. After the ears had completely dried, the kernels of grain were removed. Then they were stored and could be ground into cornmeal whenever needed to make things like bread or porridge. The corn crops at New Plymouth were so good sometimes that extra corn was traded to the native people for valuable furs. These furs were shipped back to England and used to pay off the colony's debts. By 1627, the raising of cattle had also become a very important way of making a living, because cattle could be easily sold to new colonists from England for high prices. Getting enough food for the animals was a lot of work, since to make hay, acres of grass had to be slowly cut by hand, raked up, collected, and then prepared for drying. The dried hay was stored for the winter in the Dutch barn, whose roof could be raised higher and higher as more hay was added. It took a good supply of hay, not just for the cattle, but also for the colony's goats, which were valuable as milk producers. Hay was also fed to the colony's sheep that were important for their wool, from which cloth was made. The colony's pigs ate mostly scraps and acorns and didn't need hay. Even so, each autumn many of them were butchered and their meat salted for winter use. As we have just seen, the Plymouth colonists were able to raise most of what they needed, but it was still not enough. That was why they also hunted wild game and collected shellfish and other creatures that lived in the bay, so they always would have enough to eat. Besides providing food, there were lots of other tasks that needed to be done each day to keep the colony running smoothly. Ordinary things, such as preparing a supply of fuel for the blacksmith shop, making lumber for new houses, digging post holes for fences, or drying reeds for thatching. Having to do these jobs kept the people of New Plymouth very busy 6 days a week. But Sunday was the exception, for on that day it was forbidden to work, and everyone headed off to the meeting house to attend religious services. And so on that one special day that was given over to worship, the entire village shut down and became an unusually peaceful place.